Hey. How's everybody doing this fine spring day? It is gorgeous here in Los Angeles. Not too hot, not too cold. Come on in. This is Everything's Relative with Eve Sturges, a podcast that explores DNA discoveries and what happens when people find out that at least 50% of their identity is not what they thought it was. And let me assure you, even 50% wrong is enough for 100% existential crisis. Don't know what I'm talking about? Hang around. You'll find out. Today is actually a fantastic episode for newcomers to the show because it's back to basics. A lot like my earlier episodes. Today, I talk with this guest about what happened when she did a 23andMe mail-in DNA kit and got results that didn't change anything, but actually changed everything.
This is only 10 months in the making for me.
Right. You are a newborn baby.
This came out of nowhere. It wasn't something that I was looking for. It found me. And so I think that makes it even tougher, when you're not seeking information, when you've lived your whole life believing one thing and then, but we can do all that while we're talking. So
yeah. Oh yeah. No, I'm with you on that 100%. You and I have that in common. So tell me your story. Tell me what happened either 10 months ago or, if you want to throw me, a tidbit about what it was like growing up or you can just start with 10 months ago. It's up to you.
Yeah, we can. And I think all of that will kind of integrate and kind of, wind them together. Back in 2017, I lost 2 aunts to cancer. One on my father's side and one on my mother's side. And so obviously medically, I was really concerned about that, being a female and you don't know how all of that can affect you. So my husband said, why don't you take a 23andMe test? And I'm like, no way, that is not happening. I wasn't interested. And he's like, no, really. He said, there's a medical side to it. And you might be able to find some things out to see if you have any of those traits. He's like, let's just do it and see. So I took the test, got the results back. I can honestly say that I really wasn't focused on anything from the genealogy side of it. I knew where I came from. I didn't really have any questions about that. There were no names or anything that popped up that seemed out of the ordinary to me that would make me question anything. So I focused on the medical aspect of things. Luckily, didn't see anything that was alarming. And I kind of put 23andMe in a drawer and forgot about it.
And it turns out you were safe.
I was safe
from the gene that really people look for when it comes to cancer or.
Yeah. There was nothing there that I needed to be worried about. So like I said, I completely forgot about 23andMe. So fast forward to January of this year, my husband and I were out having dinner. I'll never forget it. And a text message came through on my phone from one of my cousins on my maternal side. So one of my mom's nephews sent me a text message and he said, hey, I got a 23andMe test for Christmas and I took a test and I saw that we're a match and I was hoping that you could help me figure out some of these matches. He did not grow up real close to our maternal side of the family. His mom and my mom are sisters. And so he didn't grow up real close. So we didn't know who a lot of the matches were. And I said, well, why don't you send me a couple screenshots of some of your matches? I said, and when I get home, I'll log into 23andMe and pull it up and we'll take a look at it. We'll see if we can figure out. It's honestly been years since I've been on it. So I don't even remember my username and password. You're going to have to give me a little bit of time.
And how often do you talk to this cousin in generally? Like how close are you with him?
I would say we have a really good relationship, but he's not someone that I talk to on a weekly or even monthly basis.
Right. But it wasn't totally out of the blue for him to contact you.
No. Absolutely. Absolutely not out of the blue at all for him to contact me. So out of curiosity, obviously, when he sent me the screenshots, I kind of started scrolling through them and I was like, well, wait, that doesn't seem right. Something's not right here. A name popped up in his matches that is the nephew of my father. So my father's nephew showed up as one of his matches.
Which doesn't make sense because he's a cousin on your maternal side.
Yes, he's a cousin on my maternal side. So it totally did not make any sense to me. So obviously I get home that night because it's bothering me. I'm like, I got to look at this. Like, I've got to figure it out. So logged on to 23andMe. And of course I couldn't remember my password. So I had to go through all of the reset and everything with that. And I saw the matches that he and I had in common. And at that point, I didn't know a lot about how to, manipulate around and use the website or anything like that, even though I had used it, 4 years ago. I just wasn't real familiar with everything. So I had to do a little bit of digging.
I still am not very familiar.
Yeah, no.
I still don't know what to do.
I really didn't know what to do, but I knew that there was a way that I could look at it and see the matches that he and I had in common. So I went through and I started looking at it and I'm comparing that to the screenshots that he had sent me on the phone. And I very quickly realized that the cousin that he was related to, I was not related to.
From the paternal side.
Yeah, we had matches in common that were on the maternal side. But the matches that some of the matches that he had sent me in the screenshots that I knew were related to the paternal side, he and I did not have matches to.
Right.
It didn't take me very long to figure out. And in fact, that night, I think I was able to put 2 and 2 together enough to realize what was going on.
Can I just say that everybody tells me that, right? Like, I've been doing this for this is my 4th season, and everybody says they figured that out. And I just don't. This is going to maybe I'm just outing myself as like an idiot, but I don't know. I just want to say that impresses me. Yes, I don't know. Like, and let me preface this by saying how unfathomable it was to me, for my personal story, that my father wasn't my father, that I think it would have taken me so long for that idea to even have entered my mind, despite looking at the matches or the lack of matches. I would have been drawing out trees in pencil on papers. Like, I'm just amazed how many people put the pieces together.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, I was doing that night. I mean, okay. I had papers out but I could not figure out how he could be related to this cousin that I knew was on my dad's side.
Mm-hmm.
And I was not. We did not have that match in common. I called my cousin on the phone and he didn't answer. I called his wife on the phone and I said, I need to talk to him. I need to talk to him, like right now, talk to him. And she's like, well, we're at a family dinner. I'm like, of course you are. I need to talk to him. So he immediately called me back and he's like, what's wrong? Like, what are you panicked about? And I said, we got to talk. I said, and you're the only person that I can talk to about this. Like, it's not like I felt like I could pick up the phone and call my mom or my dad and say, hey, we just did this and we're trying to figure it out. Like, I knew that he and I were going to have to be the ones to figure out what was going on. And I explained to him, I said, I think my dad's your dad. And he's like, what? Now, let me go back and say, he grew up in a home without a father. He grew up with his mom and 2 sisters. His 2 sisters were from his mom's first marriage. And he grew up not knowing who his dad was. His mom had given him a fictitious name. Mm-hmm. And he never knew or met this man.
So he had a name, but
that was it. And I think originally that's probably why he took his test, because he was trying to figure something out from paternity because he never knew who his father was.
Of course.
So for me to call him on the phone and say, look, this match, this screenshot that you sent me, this match that's showing up, this is my dad's nephew. Like, I know you don't know this name. You wouldn't know this name because I said, but it's my dad's nephew. And he's like, okay. He's like, so like, are you telling me that you're my sister? Like you're my half sister? And I'm like, no, I said, I'm not, because I'm not matched to that person.
Yeah, I'm so confused. I mean, I'm sure he's so confused. Like, what?
I know.
My dad is your dad, but my dad's not my dad.
And that's basically exactly what I told him. And he's like, are you sure? I'm like, well, no, I'm not sure. I'm like, I don't know how any of this works. I'm like, but I do know this. I said, he has a sister that is very into genealogy. And she has done ancestry. And I know she's done ancestry because we've had conversations about it. I said, I think we both need to take an ancestry test. Because I knew that if we took this ancestry test, we would have definite people in that database.
And you would match that aunt.
Yes.
Yes. Because she's from your father's side. So if he's your father,
yes,
your aunt would match. And if
yes,
perfect.
Yes. So I thought that's a perfect thing that you and I can both do, that we can figure this out. And in the meantime, we are not saying anything to anybody. Nothing. We're not, and we made that pact that we weren't going to tell anything to anybody. And he and I talked almost every day for 8 weeks. Like, I'm not even kidding you. Like, while we were waiting for these results, we were trying to, think of different scenarios, different things that could have happened. Maybe it's wrong. Maybe, anything that we could possibly think of that would have given us any kind of an answer. We tried to do. So in the meantime, I got on every Facebook group I could find, every podcast I could find, books, anything that I could just get myself into. I basically drowned myself in it for an entire 8 weeks. I learned about centimorgans. I learned about family trees. Anything that I could find. And in that process, I actually connected with a search angel. And I spoke with her, and she contacted me, and she said, let's wait until you get your ancestry results back, and then we'll go from there. She's like, I'm not trying to hold you up, I'm not trying to put you off. Mm-hmm. She said, but I really feel that based on what you're telling me and kind of what the situation is and kind of what you're going for, by knowing that you have someone out there that's taken this test, let's just see how the results come back.
I think that's smart.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it was hard. Don't get me wrong. It was really hard. And I didn't really have, I started digging into the matches that I had on 23andMe to see if I could kind of figure anything out from there, but there wasn't anything really high enough that I was able to make sense out of, especially being a newbie and not knowing how all of this worked. So the results came back, and my results came back before his by a couple days. My results beat him, and I quickly realized that he was not my dad. My dad was not the person that I thought he was. None of his family members showed up as a match to me, but there were all these names of people that I didn't know. None that were high matches. I think my highest unknown match that I figured out was a paternal match was right around 450 centimorgans. So not a whole lot to do anything with, probably in the second cousin range. I kind of learned through talking with my search angel. I knew that we could probably figure some things out. So a couple days later, my cousin got his test results back, and he called me, and he knew immediately by the last name that what we had suspected was true. So what I refer to now, I mean, he's my dad. He's my dad. He's my dad. He's my dad. I have to say that. I think it's important to put that out there. So regardless if I call him birth certificate father for the sake of, doing this to keep things straight, he's my dad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 100% that's my dad. So we immediately realized that he was his birth father and he was my birth certificate father.
Wow. Okay. So it's like almost a double NPE reveal.
Absolutely. Absolutely it was. And it was devastating. It was absolutely devastating when I thought of, to some people, this may seem crazy to think that this is what I thought about. And, I think it's important for people to realize that not all of these stories are happy stories.
Mm-hmm.
They're not. I really feel like these DNA kits should come with a disclaimer on them like cigarettes do, because you never know, and you have to be prepared for that. And I wasn't looking for this. I would have never questioned anything. I would have never just gone out on my own and said, let me take an ancestry test to see who my father is.
Do you think if there was a disclaimer big as a cigarette, the disclaimers that are now in cigarette boxes, do you think that would have made you stop and think and not do the test?
Maybe.
Okay. Even with even with the cancer on the line?
Yeah, I can honestly tell you that I wish I would have never done it. I can honestly say that I could have lived the rest of my life without ever knowing this. I think as I share more that you'll understand that a little bit more, but nothing good came out of it for me. Nothing. Right. Absolutely, nothing. Mm-hmm. So he and I decided that we were going to just take a few days and just figure out what we were going to do with this information. Now that we have it, what are we going to do with it? His mom had passed away. So he had no one that he could go back to and really confront. The only person that he could confront was my father, and he didn't know if he was willing to do that. I was not willing to go to my father.
Or even if your father knew, confrontation. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sorry, continue. I'm spinning with you. I'm with you.
I know, there was so much, and I just felt like there were so many people's feelings to take into consideration here. I know a lot of people say, you shouldn't have to worry about people's feelings. This is about you, but it's not. There were so many other people involved in all of this that I felt that I had to be thinking about. So after a couple of days, I decided that I was going to have to reach out to my mom. I was going to have to say something to her. And knowing my mom and knowing her personality, I knew that doing it face to face or doing it over the phone were probably not my best options. Just decided that probably wasn't the best way to reach out to her. So I sat down and I sent her a message on Messenger, Facebook Messenger, and sent her a message and basically just kind of put everything out there. I told her, that after my aunts had died, I decided that I wanted to take this test. And as a result of taking this test, I have found out that I was not related to any of my dad's family. And she immediately came back with a horrible message. It was not nice. She basically told me, that I shouldn't believe what those tests said, that my dad was my dad. And, I just needed to drop this and leave it alone, that it wasn't true. And I messaged her back and I said, I just want you to know that I'm not going to leave it alone. Mm-hmm. With or without your help, I'm going to figure this out. When I had that conversation with her, I did not tell her anything about my cousin. I did not feel that, that wasn't mine to tell. And I knew that he was going to have to get to a point where he was ready to confront that because that couldn't come from me. I did tell my mom when I made contact with her that day that I had no intentions of telling my dad. That until I, figured out what was going on, that, it wasn't my intention to hurt anybody or to make anybody feel uncomfortable. I told her, I said, Mom, I don't even know if when I figure this out, I'll pursue it. I can't tell you that right now. Right now, all I want is just to know the truth and to know what's going on. So with the help of some amazing search angels, they were able to, over the course of about a month and some digging, they were able to determine with pretty good certainty who they thought my biological father was. They contacted me and we got online and we looked at this big tree together. We had a Zoom meeting together and we looked at this tree, and they felt with pretty good certainty that they had figured it out. So I contacted my mom with the name. And she still denied it. And within about 10 minutes, she came back to me and she said, I don't know where you got that name from. This is his name.
Oh.
And he had a name that he used his first name. His middle name is his first name.
Yeah. Right.
And she was using that. She was using that like I didn't know what I was talking about or what his name was, but they were one and the same. And so my mom did confirm that. I hate that. I think at that point she was just using anything that she could for me not to know the truth.
Right. Or just grappling for some sense of control over the situation.
Right.
I know the name. Right. You don't know the name. I know the name.
Exactly. The name that she had was actually incorrect. I don't think that he had been completely truthful with her as to what his name was. By the time he had met my mom and they had had their relationship, whatever it was, he had already been married twice. He had told my mom that he couldn't have children. So when my mom became pregnant, she truly believed that I was my birth certificate father's child, because he had told her that he couldn't have kids. And she believed him.
Scoundrel.
I know. So, it just crazy. So she knew that I knew. By this point, I had found out that he was deceased. He had passed away in 2007, and I shared that information with my mom. And after I shared that information with my mom, her tune kind of changed a little bit. Then she was willing to share some things with me. I think maybe because she knew that he wasn't a threat.
Right. She felt safer. Yeah.
Right. She felt like she was in a place where she could share some things with me. I think through all of this, my mom's biggest concern is no one finding out what she did. Not so much about me. It was more about she didn't want anyone finding out what she had done and the shame that she had felt for what she had done. So it was a lot, that was a lot to, kind of work through and process. I did a lot of digging on his family.
I just want to remind me and the listeners, this was like, at this point, we're at like 4 months ago, 5 months ago. We're at we're at summer 2021.
Yeah, we're at summer 2021. Yeah, wow. When all of this happened. I'm a newbie at all of this. I'm new at, figuring this out. And I don't know how to figure it out. I'm still trying to figure it out. And I don't know how, I don't know how to figure it out. I don't know how to process it. And I think a lot of it is, and I think some of it might be some of the choices I've made with keeping things, on the down low and not saying anything. But I don't see any benefit in it.
Right.
My birth certificate, my biological father's deceased. His parents are deceased. He had no siblings. He was an only child. he did have a daughter that I just found out within the last several weeks was adopted. I thought from the beginning, I had thought that maybe she was a biological sister.
Mm-hmm.
I had decided very early on that I was not going to pursue that.
Mm-hmm.
Just after doing some digging and things like that, I realized that our lifestyles were very, very different.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't something that I felt comfortable with bringing in. And I don't know, maybe this sounds selfish and to, each person their own, but I just felt that her lifestyle just wasn't something that I felt comfortable bringing into mine.
No, I'm glad you said that, because I think that's an important thing to talk about, because we talk so much about everybody wanting to blend and in so many different ways. And the people that discover family and look at them and don't feel a connection or feel concern. I think it's important to bring that up. So like, then what do you do for all sorts of reasons?
And there were lots of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that wasn't a decision that I just, looked at a Facebook picture and said, oh, yeah, no, that one's not for me.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like that. There was a lot of thought and digging and that went into that decision. So I really knew at that point that there was nothing good was going to come for me personally from this discovery.
She older or younger?
She's younger. 10 years younger, a day apart. Our birthdays were a day apart. She was 10 years younger. But I knew that nothing good, was going to come of any of that relationship. So I made that decision at that point in time. I was not going to tell my birth certificate father, my dad that raised me.
Your dad. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my dad. I made that decision that I was not going to tell my dad. I told my mom, I said, I'm not telling him. I don't ever want him to know. I don't want to hurt him. He, for what purpose?
Right.
For what purpose at this point, when my parents are both in their 70s, what purpose does it serve than to hurt people?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to do that. It just wasn't something I was willing to do. I remember something I was going to say a minute ago that I had forgotten about, that one of the hardest parts for me was, and this is crazy to kind of wrap your mind around, is that my cousin that this started with has a closer relationship to my siblings than I do. And that was tough for me.
Right. There's like a whole other drama happening.
Right.
Like parallel to yours.
Yes, that was so hard for me, and I don't know why. I don't know why that was so hard for me, but that was one of my biggest hangups in all of this.
Because he's a full sibling to your siblings.
He's a half sibling.
Got it. Right. Because it's not the same mom.
But he's also a first cousin, which in genealogy he's known as a 3/4 sibling.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Crazy. Right.
I feel so bad when I get confused.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Like that was probably one of the biggest things.
His mom is your mom's sister.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah. His mom and my mom are sisters. So my dad that raised me had an affair with his wife's sister.
Yeah, his sister-in-law. Mm-hmm. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, with his sister-in-law.
Yeah.
That resulted in this cousin. Yeah. So, yeah. In all of this, in this process, I did decide to, only because I was in a bad spot. I was in a really bad spot.
I imagine that I know what you mean by that. But when you say a bad spot, you mean depressed? You mean sad? You mean angry? You mean?
I think, yes, to all of that. I think you can feel one day one way and feel something completely different the next. I mean, I've gone through that whole gamut of emotions. My husband grew up in a home where he was raised by a stepdad, so to him, those kind of weird relationships or those, today that is a traditional relationship. I mean, I think most homes, unfortunately, nowadays are like that. Mine wasn't like that. I grew up in the same home with the same mom and dad, with the same, brothers and sisters. I think that it wasn't so abnormal to him. And I think men in general, I think just don't, connect with that kind of stuff. I did finally reach out to my sister, one of my sisters, that I have a really, really good, close relationship with.
A close sister that you grew up with.
Yes, a close sister that I grew up with. Yes, a biological sister that I have a good relationship with. And I shared everything with her. Just because I needed some support. I needed somebody that I could talk to, that I knew that I could trust, that wasn't going to, I knew she wasn't going to say anything to anybody. I knew that I didn't have to worry about that. And I needed something, because on the inside, I don't, I mean,
I do know,
you just, it's not a good place to be. And that's why I say, had I have really put the thought into it before I ever took that first 23andMe test, I think I had to take the ancestry test. I think at that point it was a have to.
Oh yeah. There's no going back. That's the thing.
Yeah, there is no going back. But I think that had I have known then what I know now, I would have never done that first 23andMe. That first 23andMe test. Through all of the digging and all of the research that we did, I also found out that my dad that raised me is also an NPE.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
That's what happens when you get bit by that genealogy bug.
Right.
You kind of start digging a little too much, and you start finding out things that you really, really don't want to know. But yeah, I did find that out. He obviously does not know that. It's not something that I have shared with him.
I didn't decide to go in and just like to deflect from your situation entirely.
No.
Weirdest thing, Dad. Weirdest thing.
Yeah. Let me just tell you how this all falls apart. And I don't feel, I don't feel that he knows. I don't think he ever knew. I think he doesn't. And I don't think anyone in his family knows either. And, fortunately with these tests, the only way that, unless one of my dad's children were to ever take a test, I don't think anyone would ever find out. But, it's crazy. We're living in a time where, people aren't going to be able to keep these types of secrets anymore. With these type of tests that are out there, these people aren't going to be able to continue keeping these secrets within their families, because it just it's out there. Once it's out there and they figure it out, there's
the sister that you found through your bio dad that you decided to not reach out to, has she reached out the other way to you?
No, she has not. And here's why. I just found out here recently, one of the search angels that I was working with, when my bio dad passed away, by the time he had passed away, he had been married 7 times.
All right.
Yes. That's 7
times. I admire the tenacity at that point. That's what I always think is like there's a belief in something there that logic has superseded logic, but that's awesome. Right. Okay. 7 times.
Right. Woo! Yeah. So one of the search angels that I had worked with reached out to the mother. Would that be right?
Yes.
The mother. So she reached out to one of his ex-wives, and just kind of was very vague in the information that she gave. She never gave my name or anything like that. She knew all the right things to say.
Right.
And told her basically that her ex-husband had another child and she was just trying to get some information, maybe get her hands on some pictures, anything, that she might be willing to share. And the woman told her, she goes, "That's really strange." She said, "I did not think that my husband could have children, or my ex-husband could have children." She said, "We adopted our daughter. We brought her home when she was 3 days old because my husband at the time didn't think he could have children." So in his defense, him telling my mom that, I really do think that this poor man believed that he could not have children.
Right.
But obviously he did.
Okay. And I'm sorry, just that daughter.
Right.
That he adopted.
Right.
Is not the person there's also a biological daughter.
No. She's one and the same.
Okay.
She's one and the same.
Okay. So she is a sister, but she's actually not biologically
right
related. So she was adopted by him. I was imagining he was adopted. She was adopted out. Okay.
No.
Got it.
They adopted her at birth at 3 days old because he did not think that he could have kids. So he and his wife decided to adopt. So that really helped with that situation. I felt like I dodged a big bullet,
So she won't find you through a DNA test. There's actually no. So there's a connection. There's like a connect. There's like a paperwork connection to her, but there's not a genetic connection to her. Okay.
Absolutely.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, obviously if I had, grown up knowing that, he was my father, maybe there would have been a connection there. But yeah, no, so that's why I say, there's nothing there. He was an only child. He had, there's no cousins, nieces, nephews, aunts, there's nobody. So,
yeah, it just goes to show that a low sperm count is not no sperm count.
That's exactly right. I've jokingly, off the record, referred to myself as the one that got away.
You fell through the cracks.
I know. I know. And you try and find good in that. You really do. I've tried to put a positive spin on that, and but sometimes that's hard.
Sure.
It's hard to process all of that and make sense of all of that. I did not have a good relationship with my dad growing up. I grew up in a home where I was the oldest child, and my dad was an alcoholic and a drug addict. So I didn't grow up in an ideal home. When I was 18 years old, I left home, and it wasn't until I was 20 that, my dad decided to get himself straight and clean his act up. I love the man. I love all of his faults, that come with him. But I don't want to hurt him. And there's no reason at 70 years old, to do that. As far as my cousin goes, he's going to have to decide what he wants to do with his information. That's his story. That's, he's got to decide if he ever wants to confront them about that. I mean, obviously he knows that I know, and I know that he knows about me,
right.
Because that's all, that's how it all came out, but it's not fun stuff, and like I said, there's so many people that, they come out and they're like, "Oh, this is so great. I found this long lost family," and they have good things to tell. And I think it's important for people to realize that it doesn't always happen that way. It doesn't always come out where things are good.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I 100% agree. I don't disagree with you in any way. I think listeners of this podcast know that it doesn't always work out well, but I think you're right. I think it's important to appreciate that you are not going to tell your birth certificate dad. I think a lot of people, I think there's a lot of people that make that decision, but we don't hear from them, or I don't hear from them. So the not telling is as important as the telling.
Yeah. I think you just have to decide, it's yours to do with what you want. And I think the hardest, one of the things that I've tried to tell myself is, I didn't do this. I personally did not do this. It's just, my hope is that one day that, I think as we start seeing this more and more, and I do think that we're going to start seeing this more and more. I really do. I know of 2 other people that have just recently gone through something very, very similar.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think we're going to see it more. My hope is that there'll be services out there for people,
Mm-hmm.
people that they can reach out to get help with processing all of this, because I think the norm don't even know how to touch this.
Right. Oh, you're right.
How do you touch this? What do you say to someone that's gone through something like this, that's going through something like this? What do you say to that person to really offer them some strategies and support to really kind of work through it? So that's my hope, that one day, there'll be something out there available. I'll probably be one of the first people in line. There's such a need for it. And the more that I'm on these podcasts, and the more that I am on all of these different Facebook pages, reading posts and things that people are putting out there, there's a need.
There's a need. People are begging for it. Like thousands, like take it from me and my guest. Like there are thousands of us online, and all this conversation happening 24 hours a day of people saying, I need help. I don't know what to do. I need structure. I need guidance. I need community. We need conversation. We need to talk about the paradigm. It's slow. There are some resources available. I mean, very, very tiny. It's very tiny. I don't want to say that there's none. You can go on my website. I have a link of resources for the NPE, but it's small. It's small, really small. We all know each other.
Exactly. But I think the need is growing, and it's growing, when you think January, when you think all these people, the holidays are getting ready to come up, and so many people are going to be getting these tests for Christmas.
So many jokes. So many jokes in the groups right now. They're like, oh, holiday sales. Everybody get ready.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And, not even realizing, what's going on. My cousin that went through this, he did it openly out, in the open with his other side of the family, and had a family member. They were at a dinner having a conversation, and one of the mothers of one of the people that was there was acting really odd. Like, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to take one of those tests? Well, her child took the test, and guess what happened?
Shit. I know what happened.
What do you think happened? She found out she was an NPE. I mean, it's crazy.
That's really interesting, because if you're actually a good kind of case study, because you've been doing this for 10 months, less than a year, you've had that many connections to an NPE story.
Yes. Crazy. And
unless you lived in the most promiscuous town with the least amount of birth control, like you're probably a good representation of like a general population of a regular American community.
And I really do think that. I really, really do think that. I believe that wholeheartedly. One of the opportunities that I've had since getting involved and learning all about this, I've been able to work with some search angels.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Like, how did you evolve into? I didn't know if you wanted to talk about that. You are a search angel at this. Or you work with search angels. You don't work individually.
I hate to give myself that title. You don't ever. I don't know that after 10 months I've really earned that title. I have helped along the way solve some really tough cases.
You're like an apprentice. You're like a search angel apprentice, or like
but I've had the opportunity to work alongside some search angels to help some other NPEs solve some cases. And so I think that there's some healing that's coming with that. Being able to take that shift and off yourself, where you're sitting thinking about, yourself the whole time and everything that you're in the middle of. But when you kind of take that shift off and you're able to, look at somebody else that's going through these type things and get involved and try and help them solve their cases, there's a lot of satisfaction that comes with that. So right now I'm really enjoying getting to be a part of that.
Yeah. Oh, great. Yep. I'll say it. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The power of being of service is an underappreciated healing resource to helping others.
Definitely. And I've made great friendships with these women. And so that's been, that's been a joy too, where there's, I don't know, just those friendships, women making those friendships with things that you have in common. And, not that they completely understand because none of them are NPEs themselves, but, they've walked with me in this journey from the very, very beginning. So that's been helpful too.
Right. And they certainly speak the same language.
Oh,
so that's just so helpful.
Absolutely.
So helpful. That is, yeah. Wow. You had said it was a wild story. And it is, but it's like a simple story. It's also really wild.
It's crazy.
Thank you so much for sharing it.
It's been my pleasure. It definitely has.
And I like to ask, do you feel like you're 10 months out, so you've got at least something under your belt as far as experience goes. Do you feel like you have anything that you wish you had known going into, like, upon your realizing your NPE status, or, do you wish that is there any advice you would give to somebody who's a day into it?
I would say my biggest suggestion would probably be, if you decide that you're going to take one of these tests, make sure that you're in a good place in your life with other things. If you've just recently gone through a divorce, or if you've recently, just gone through the death of a family member or the loss of a job, one of those big life altering events, it's probably not the best time for you to take a DNA test.
Right. What are the other stressors in your life, and what are the other stressors in your life, and what is your support system and network like currently?
Right. Right.
I think that's really good advice.
Because I really, obviously, I have a wonderful husband, don't get me wrong. And the search angels that I've worked with, are amazing, but it's different when you have, when you can't rely on, I don't know. You've really got to have that close knit group of people that you can cling to. I remember someone telling me, it doesn't change anything. And I remember thinking, if I hear one more person tell me that it doesn't change anything, I'm going to lose my mind.
Gonna lose it. Yep.
I'm going to lose it, because it changes everything.
Right. It's actually the opposite of that.
That would definitely probably be my biggest piece of advice. Just make sure that you're at a good point in your life. That if things come back in a way that you're not expecting, that you're in a place that you can handle it. Luckily I didn't have a lot of other things going on. So, but mine was just a lot, because it wasn't just the fact that, there was so much, it wasn't just finding out about me. It was about finding out about my cousin. It was about finding out about my dad.
Yeah. So much. Yeah.
So much. So just make sure you're in a good place if you're going to do something like this.
Yeah. I think that is great and wonderful advice. It's good advice for lots of things that we do that we don't consider enough. Great. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the work you do. Thank you for the work you do helping others. That's really wonderful. And you're right. But hopefully as the resources grow, which they're not growing as fast as the community is growing, which is
Right.
to your point that there's more NPEs appearing than there are resources available. Hopefully you can help spread the word as we, try as those of us trying to create those supports, as we sort of try to bolster that side of things. I hope we can stay in touch about that.
I would love that.
Yeah. Listening back over that conversation, I am struck with how vulnerable my guest was and how new to the discovery she was, and still is. I loved her honesty about how hard it's been, how hard it is to wait for answers or for people to think about it or for results or for emails. And her acknowledgement of things that a lot of people on here don't talk about. Her wish that she had never taken a test, and also her decision to not reach out to biological connections. I hope that everyone knows there is no one way to navigate any of this. And just because it seems like the majority of people are doing things a certain way, it doesn't mean you have to do it that way too. So I'm glad that she brought up the things that she's doing that may feel like not a lot of people are doing. I don't want anyone to think that they're alone in any of their choices with their DNA discovery. If you want to tell me how you're navigating the shit show that is your DNA discovery, contact me. I'm on all the socials at Everything's Relative Podcast, or you can email me, eve@everythingsrelativepodcast.com. I hope you had a nice time today learning about our community, learning about where you fit into the story. And if you did, I hope that you will consider supporting this podcast on Patreon. Every teeny tiny amount counts. So think of it like buying me a cup of coffee so that I can keep making this show. Anyway, thank you for all the support in all your ways. I appreciate it more than words can express. Please come back soon for another episode. And in the meantime, think about if you really aren't going to wear masks on public transportation, pay your bills, and say hi to your neighbor for me. I'm Eve Sturges. This is Everything's Relative. Bye-bye.
Everything's Relative with Eve Sturges is produced by Eve Sturges and Kaylin Egan and edited by Joy Rumel. Logo designed by Ivy McNally, and music is used with permission from Goodbye the Band. Eve is a licensed psychotherapist.